now seeks reconciliation.
We must forget the past, brother. Unite!
The Odyssey movie reimagines one of the most enduring epics in human history for a modern cinematic audience, transforming an ancient tale of survival, longing, and destiny into a sweeping visual spectacle filled with emotion and intensity. Rooted in the legendary journey of Odysseus after the Trojan War, the film embraces the mythic grandeur of the source material while reshaping it with contemporary storytelling depth. Rather than presenting the story as a distant classical legend, this adaptation grounds it in raw humanity, showing a warrior not just battling monsters and gods, but wrestling with guilt, pride, trauma, and the unbearable pull of home. From the very beginning, the tone feels epic yet intimate. The battlefield of Troy lingers in memory rather than dominating the narrative, casting a shadow over Odysseus' voyage. The war is over, but its consequences remain. The film opens with a sense of exhaustion rather than triumph, as Odysseus and his men set sail, unaware that their return to Ithaca will take far longer and cost far more than they ever imagined. The ocean becomes a character in itself, beautiful, merciless, unpredictable. It is not simply a path home, but a testing ground designed by fate. Visually, the movie leans into scale. Towering cliffs, endless horizons, storm-torn skies, and dark, uncharted islands create a cinematic world that feels vast and ancient. Every location carries a distinct atmosphere. The island of the Cyclops feels oppressive and claustrophobic, carved from jagged rock and echoing with danger. The realm of Circe glows with an eerie, seductive beauty, blurring the line between sanctuary and trap. The underworld sequence stands out as one of the film's most haunting achievements, enveloping Odysseus in shadows and whispering spirits that force him to confront his own mortality. At the center of it all is Odysseus himself, portrayed not as a flawless hero, but as a complex and often conflicted man. His intelligence and cunning are emphasized just as much as his flaws. Pride becomes both his greatest weapon and his deepest weakness. When he outwits the Cyclops, the triumph feels sharp and exhilarating. Yet his decision to reveal his name sets off a chain of divine wrath that fuels much of the journey's suffering. The film carefully examines this moment, portraying it not just as a plot point, but as a character-defining choice born from ego and the need for recognition. The gods play a powerful role throughout the story, yet they are depicted with nuance rather than simplicity. Athena's guidance feels subtle and strategic, her presence often sensed more than seen. Poseidon's anger is relentless and overwhelming, embodied through violent storms and crashing waves rather than constant physical appearances. This portrayal makes the divine influence feel pervasive and unstoppable, as if fate itself is breathing down Odysseus' neck. The tension between human free will and divine manipulation becomes one of the film's central themes. While much of the narrative focuses on Odysseus' perilous voyage, the film intercuts with scenes in Ithaca, where Penelope and Telemachus endure their own struggles. Penelope is portrayed not merely as a waiting wife, but as a woman holding together a kingdom under siege by opportunistic suitors. Her intelligence and resilience mirror Odysseus' own cunning. The tension in Ithaca builds steadily, showing that the journey home is not only about surviving the sea, but about reclaiming identity and restoring order. Telemachus' arc adds another emotional layer. Growing up in the absence of his father, he struggles with doubt and the burden of legacy. The film gives him moments of growth and courage, showing that heroism can manifest in quiet strength as well as battlefield glory. His search for answers about his father's fate parallels Odysseus' fight to return, creating a dual narrative of longing and transformation. One of the film's most captivating sequences unfolds on the island of the Sirens. Rather than presenting them as simple monsters, they are portrayed as embodiments of temptation and regret. Their song is not merely seductive, but deeply personal, echoing the fears and desires of each sailor. Odysseus' decision to have himself bound to the mast becomes a powerful metaphor for discipline and self-awareness. He chooses to confront temptation directly, knowing that knowledge without restraint can destroy him. The pacing of the movie balances high-intensity action with reflective, quiet moments. After brutal storms or deadly encounters, there are scenes of stillness, Odysseus staring at the horizon, remembering Ithaca, whispering Penelope's name. These pauses allow the audience to feel the weight of time passing. Years stretch into decades, and the physical toll on Odysseus becomes increasingly visible. His beard grows longer, his body bears scars, and his eyes carry a mixture of determination and fatigue. The encounter with Circe stands out for its emotional complexity. Rather than depicting her solely as an antagonist, the film portrays her as a figure of both danger and understanding. She recognizes Odysseus' loneliness and offers him respite, yet the cost of staying would mean abandoning his destiny. Their dynamic becomes less about manipulation and more about choice. Odysseus must decide whether comfort is worth surrendering his journey. Ultimately, his longing for home proves stronger than any enchantment. The descent into the underworld marks a turning point. This sequence is visually darker and thematically heavier than anything that comes before. Surrounded by spirits of fallen comrades and lost warriors, Odysseus confronts the consequences of war and ambition. The prophecy he receives reinforces that his return will not be simple or painless. The underworld forces him to reckon with his mortality and the fragility of his legacy. As the narrative moves toward its climax, the tension in Ithaca reaches a breaking point. The suitors grow more arrogant, believing Odysseus to be long dead. Penelope's weaving ruse becomes a symbol of patience and strategic endurance. The film builds suspense by showing how close everything is to collapse just as Odysseus finally approaches home, his return to Ithaca is deliberately understated. Disguised and cautious, he walks among his own people unrecognized. This choice heightens the emotional payoff. Rather than rushing into battle, the film allows Odysseus to observe, to measure the situation, and to test loyalty. The reunion with Telemachus carries quiet intensity, filled with disbelief and restrained emotion. It is not a loud celebration, but a fragile moment of reconnectation. The final confrontation with the suitors delivers a burst of long-awaited catharsis. The action is brutal and decisive, contrasting sharply with the patience that preceded it. Odysseus reclaims his throne not through blind rage, but through calculated strategy. The bow sequence becomes symbolic of rightful identity. Only he can string it. Only he can reclaim what was lost. Yet the film does not end on simple triumph. The aftermath carries weight. Odysseus has returned, but he has changed. The years of struggle have reshaped him. The closing scenes focus on reconciliation between husband and wife, father and son, king and kingdom. Penelope's recognition scene is particularly powerful, built on subtle emotional cues rather than grand declarations. Their reunion feels earned, layered with relief, love, and the awareness of time lost. Musically, the score enhances the epic scale while maintaining emotional intimacy. Orchestral swells accompany storms and battles, while softer melodies underscore moments of longing and reflection. The music bridges ancient myth with modern cinematic language, making the story feel timeless rather than distant. The release of the Odyssey movie sparked widespread anticipation. Due to its ambitious scale and the challenge of adapting such a foundational epic, early promotional glimpses emphasized sweeping visuals, intense performances, and a grounded approach to mythological storytelling. Audiences were intrigued by how the film would balance fidelity to the ancient poem with contemporary sensibilities. Ultimately, the Odyssey stands as both an adventure and a meditation. It is about survival, yes, but also about identity and homecoming. It asks whether a man can ever truly return unchanged after everything he has endured. It portrays heroism not as perfection, but as perseverance in the face of overwhelming odds. By the time the credits roll, the journey feels monumental. Not just because of the monsters defeated or storms survived, but because of the emotional distance traveled. The ocean that once seemed endless now feels like a bridge crossed through sheer will. The film leaves viewers with a lingering sense of reflection about loyalty, resilience, pride, and the enduring human desire to find one's way home, no matter how impossible the path may seem.